Make a start. It's just gone 4:30. Just like to welcome members of the public to this meeting of the Finance and Assets Committee held on 25th of January 2024, and also welcome to those members of the press and public who are watching this online. If the live stream does go down, we will pause the meeting at that stage to see if we can get the live stream reconnected, and then obviously depending on if there is a big issue, we will make a decision what we're going to do, but hopefully there won't be that problem tonight. The first item we have on the agenda is public question time. No. No, thank you. We have no public questions. Oh, okay, yeah. In which case, if you can come forward, and you've got 3 minutes to ask the question, and if you... Oh, hang on. Can we just that the monitoring officer see the actual question? That's why we get them put in the box, just to make sure that there's nothing that's a... Okay, thank you for that. If you could just introduce yourself certainly for members of the public online, and as I say, you've got 3 minutes, and should be able to press the button. You'll get a light. That's it. You've got the light there.
Very good.
Go.
Good afternoon. My name is Andrew Previtt. I'm the chairman of the Streatham Parish Council. I'm here on behalf of the council. Initially, I'd like to ask the committee if they received copies of my email from the 18th of January regarding the Link Streatham SWCLT's application. If they don't, I have brought copies along if you'd like us to distribute some. I think while you're looking through those, I may as well start. It's based on, as you'll see from that email that was sent on the 18th of January, regarding, as we consider, the misrepresentation of Streatham Parish Council with regard to the SWCLT link application for funding. And this related to the terms of reference for the funding panel, having considered the summary that, and I'll read it. Members noted the extensive letters of support for the new project. SIL application also was to be submitted to F&A committee on the 25th of January. Concurrent with this application, £340,000 of match funding had been committed by the parish council, i.e. Streatham Parish Council. Well, I'll take those points as they come. Basically, I did contact and received a reply from Sally, who mentioned that we were not able, under the confidentiality, to see sight of the letters of support. One was shown to me, which was the Streatham Parish Council's letter of principle of support to Mearside Medical, purely on the basis that they were making a funding application to the NHS to supply medical services from a facility within the village. It was not for planning application purposes, and we made that quite clear at the time. However, that has been part of the consideration, as I understand it. I'm not sure how extensive this report, support is, if it's just based on the correspondence you've received, if it's just residents from the village. If it is, then I'm surprised because we've not had consultation as a parish council. And as far as I'm aware, there's been no consultation of the residents of the village of any signs of what they would wish from this project. Regarding the match funding, there's never been a commitment, or we've even been asked for a match funding figure of £340,000 towards this project. So as far as we're aware, it's unidentified funding. And I'd question again whether that was weighted into the funding panel and how they scored it. I was led to believe that it was a typo and that it would be amended within the minutes of this meeting. But I would ask the question, was that considered within the funding panel as a criteria against their decision on whether they actually approved the application or not? Also, there's a reference to SIL funding application, which I believe is to be considered within this meeting this evening. And I would question again that we've not been consulted in any way. We're not aware of any SIL application. And as a parish council, we'd consider that we would have been consulted, or at least it had been flagged up to us. So on the basis of the points that I've raised and the considerations against how the criteria, and I believe the terms of reference, would weight the various points as to whether the considered opinion of the committee is to approve it or not, I would question the statement should be either withdrawn or considered in great detail once again. I would add that the Streatham Parish Council has the full support of there being a medical facility surgery within the village. What we're not or haven't been aware of is any liaison with SWCLT. They have not been in contact with us. They've not liaised with us in any form. So this has come as it's new to us and it's become alarming because of some of the claims that have been made within the application, and it's caused a lot of dissent within the village. My email has been very busy, should I put it that way? And this is not for approval, I can assure you. But I can reiterate, we are, as Parish Council, committed to supporting a medical facility, a surgery to be sited within the Manor Farm, and we would assist in whichever way we can. However, we do understand that SWCLT's 106 agreement obligation under their planning to supply that surgery, and this has been dragging on for a number of years. Unfortunately, it's been confused in as much that both projects so far, both the hub and the link, have been added to the surgery and have confused matters. So I'll leave it there, but I would just ask if the application based on the information I've just given you could either be withdrawn or reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, for that. Do you want to?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for your questions. As you said, I did email you back and say that there was an error in the committee report. The panel saw the application form when they assessed the application for funding, and that clearly said that the match funding was coming from Streatham and Wilburton CLT, and it was assessed on that basis that the panel were aware that they were the ones providing the funding.
Sorry, does it still not state within this that there are two applications, aren't there? One for 700,000. Or maybe I've got this wrong.
There's one application on the Growth and Infrastructure Fund, yeah.
So on the scoring applications, it's still showing as match funding to be committed by the Parish Council.
In the papers, yes, because the papers were published before the error was identified, but in the minutes of this meeting, this will be recorded and they'll be corrected.
So basically, that match funding was never considered to be coming from the Parish Council in the consideration of the scoring panel. Could I ask then also the other points that I've raised, should they be of consideration to the panel?
The panel obviously saw the application forms and saw the list of where the other letters of support were from, and I mean, we've obviously got an agenda item on this. It's for members of the panel and the committee to decide whether they thought there was sufficient support alongside the letter from Streatham Parish Council.
So, okay, so it states members noted the extensive letters of support from the new project. Is there any chance of putting a number against the extensive amount?
I think that's something we need to, so. Yeah, we can discuss that when we come to the agenda item, yeah. I think in
sorry.
terms of your other points, I mean, obviously that we're considering this later in the meeting, so those I'm sure may be brought out by members during that discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Moving on then, item 2 is apologies and substitutions. Tracy.
Thank you, Chairman. We have a number of apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Shepherd, and Councillor Inskip will be substituting, but unfortunately he's going to be a little bit late. We have apologies from Councillor Lay, and Councillor Goodall is substituting. Apologies from Councillor Bovingdon, and Councillor Bailey is substituting, and apologies from Councillor Pitt and Councillor Colbert is substituting. And we've also had a message from Councillor Dupre saying she will be attending, but again, she's going to be a little bit late as well.
Thank you, Tracy. Can I welcome Councillor Goodall to his first Finance and Assets meeting? Thank you. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Do members have any declarations of interest? No. Item 4 then is the minutes. We've had one comment about, is your comment, Councillor Whelan, about the minutes? It's item 4.
Yeah, just the question there, just saying that obviously a lot was said about the climate change, nature and recover chapter and the draft hedgehog recovery SPD being at this meeting, and they aren't. So just questioning where they were. We can see that there's an answer there as to what is happening. So thank you for that.
No. Yeah, I mean, that particular paper was not time dependent. It needed to come to this meeting, and we were aware that there's a lot on this agenda. So to add another item that needed a fair bit of consideration seemed not wise to do that. Thank you. So are members happy with the minutes of that meeting on the 23rd of November? Okay, thank you. Item 5, Chairman's announcements. I've only got one announcement, which is that just to acknowledge Emma Grimmer is not with us this evening, but I believe she served as the main officer for about 10 years on this committee. So I'd just like to thank her for her work on that. Sally Bonnet is here. I'm sure we'll do an equally good job. Thank you. Item 6 then is the annual Treasury Management Strategy. Can I ask Ian to introduce the paper, please? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The strategy in front of you is little changed from this year's strategy, but please note the expectation of no external borrowing during the period under the MTFS and the reasonably high level of cash investments currently being held by the Council. As detailed, while requesting the committee to recommend Council to approve this report, I'm asking for ability to make changes to the report depending on the decision you make tonight with regard to the crematorium. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. We have one question submitted already from Councillor Whelan. Are you happy with that response, and do you want to follow up on that?
No, it was just to ensure that we are following best practice on that, and that was the only reason for the question.
Okay, great, thank you. And members, any other questions on the paper? Councillor Bailey.
Just a comment. Yeah, just to say thank you for another excellent Treasury management strategy. It's not the most exciting document we received, but very necessary nonetheless. And I'm extremely pleased to see that we continue to be in a position of not requiring any external borrowing for our plans. I think we're one of only 38 upper tier non-parish councils in the country out of 381 nationally, I think it is, that has only 38 in total that have no external borrowing. So it's really pleasing that we continue to be in that position, because many councils are really struggling now, that particularly interest rates have increased. So thank you for your careful management of the situation.
Thank you, councillor Bailey. Members, any debate on this? Any? Councillor Hunt.
I'm really just to say, forget you were going to put me on, because I'd already got notes here about the exciting situation it really is to say we've got no external borrowings. But councillor Bailey's already said that, so I withdraw. I won't make any comment.
Thank you. Any other comments, members? Okay, in which case we're looking to this committee to recommend to full council to approve the 2024-25 Treasury Management Strategy, the annual investment strategy, the minimum revenue provision policy statement, and the prudential and Treasury indicators, and also approve that the Director of Finance amends the strategy between committee and council to build into any changes required to reflect the decision made at committee with regard to the crematorium project. I'm happy, as it's largely a procedural matter, to propose that from the chair. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Goldsack.
Very happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. All members in favour of that recommendation? Thank you. And good evening to Councillor Inskip. We just finished item 6, so we'd
Thank you,
perhaps
Chair.
come on.
I've been listening to the live stream. So
Does it sound as good as it is in here?
better if I was
Thank you. Okay. Item 7 is the revenue budget, capital strategy and council tax for 2024-25. Can I again ask Ian to introduce that paper? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. On the assumption that members have read the report, I wasn't going to say much in introduction, other to say we've obviously, by use of the surplus savings reserve, we have a balanced budget for the budget year and the first year of the MTFS, which is obviously a strong position and a far better position than many local councils. However, we do still await for the, confirmation of when the fair funding review will take place, which is obviously detailed in, anticipated in this report as 26-27. I wanted to also just make members aware that a number of changes are likely to be made between this version of the report and that going to full council. Members will be aware that government announced additional funding for councils yesterday. Clearly that will be added to the report before full council. Business rates information will be changed on the basis of the business rates return. It has to be with government on by the end of this month. Clearly there's the crematorium potentially to be changed for. Members' allowances will be changed to reflect the independent review of members' allowances, and also the increase in car parking at the Angel Grove from £3 to £4. All those changes will be in the version which you've received at full council. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. I've had no written questions on this. Are there any questions? Councillor Whelan.
I'd like to jump just a little bit further forward if I can, and just say that, bearing in mind that we know that this is not the budget which is going to go to the full council, should we just actually move on from here and save ourselves time for other items on the agenda?
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. I'm happy with that, unless any members got any questions or things they want to comment on. No.
I mean, I would like to propose the item.
Obviously, we need a I need a proposer and a seconder that we recommend this to full council, but I'm happy in the interest of time, because we have got there are some substantive items later on. Councillor Bailey, did you want to just?
Well, yeah,
propose?
I have got a few words in proposing it, and bearing in mind some people have made the effort to come and hear what goes on at council. I think it's worth just saying a few words, and you know, I want to particularly note that government has in the last few days announced some increased funding for rural authorities and those with internal drainage boards. We don't know the details of how that will affect this authority. It might be a neutral effect. I don't know yet, but we're looking forward to receiving more information about that. And it is important. I think this council's taken part in lobbying efforts around internal drainage board councils because we are coming under increasing pressure from the levies that are applied. So I want to thank yourself, Chairman, and our finance officer who've been involved in those efforts, because it seems to have paid off, and it is critically important to this area. This is putting forward a proposal to freeze council tax again. It will be the 11th year that we've held our share of the council tax bills at £142.14 for a Band D property. We do it because we can, and you know, it can't last forever, but we've always for a long time had a belief that you should only increase council tax if it's absolutely necessary, and we're sticking to that. And it is pleasing to see that we are still in a balanced position for 2 years. Obviously, we need to see final details when it comes to full council after any changes. I also think it's worth just mentioning that this council doesn't have any efficiency targets built into this budget, which a number of our neighbouring authorities do have, because that's not currently necessary, and that we do budget for our staff establishment in full, because we think it's right to make sure that there is no pressure applied on the organisation not to recruit staff in a timely fashion, and having the right staff is really important. So we don't build in a staff vacancy lag into our budget. But we do generally make savings each year from staff savings, and, you know, not recruiting on the same day that somebody's left their post. There is significant additional funding built into this budget around the waste service, again, for inflation and environmental improvements to our service and new fleet. We're going to need to be fleet of foot around that, because we're still trying to grapple with the changes that are coming in, and making sure that we can implement those changes in the best way that we can, given our situation with the waste disposal authorities issues at the county council. It's not easy, but we have built in funding for black wheelie bins purchase if we are able to move to a 3-bin solution, which we do hope we can do. And we've got uplifts in there for our internal drainage boards. We've also got money for new local plan funding, which we did promise last year when there was anxiety from some of our members of council about the fact that you know, we weren't yet moving to a new local plan, but we know the timing of that has been necessary to wait until we knew what we were being asked by government to do with our local plan, and you'll see that the funding's been built in for that. We're also embarking on a new website for the council. It's many years since we've made any fundamental change to our website, and you know, the website is becoming an increasingly important tool for the way that residents engage with the council. So there's going to be you know, a new structure of the website, and I think our comms team and our the people look after our IT and our website for putting those proposals forward. So there are other things that I could say, but I'll keep it to that for now, and we'll no doubt have more discussion at full council.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. Any other members wish to comment? No, in which case we go. Oh, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. Almost all the things I was going to say have been said by Councillor Bailey, but I do think it is important that we get over a feeling that when people come to East Cambs, they're welcome, and that extends to the free car parking. And not many people are aware that you even get free moorings if you arrive here by boat, and you also get a free toilet if you arrive, however you arrive. And so the idea is we're trying to say to people, come to East Cambs, it's a good place. And instead of saying, come here and we'll fine you, we're saying, come here and welcome. And that's reflected in our market square and the behaviours there. And we will continue to keep that policy going and welcome people here, because we think we've got something to shout about, and I believe we have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor Hunt. I've got councillor Goodall.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to second the motion from councillor Bailey's proposal. That's all.
Thank you, Martin. In which case, members, I'm seeing no other speakers. The committee is asked to recommend to full council the draft revenue budget, statement of reserves, capital strategy, fees and charges, and the extension of the retail, hospitality and leisure 75% business rate relief. And also 2.2 to authorise Director of Finance in consultation with the chairman of the committee to adjust the use of the surplus savings reserves in 24-25 in respect of the decision we've got later around the bereavement centre if there's changes that are needed. Are all members in favour of that? Those against? Those abstaining? Right. I think that's carried, isn't it? Tracy, thank you. Item 8 then, moving on, is the finance report. And again, it's over to Ian. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The council is currently forecasting a revenue underspend of £852,000, which will be transferred to the surplus savings reserve at year end. The detailed explanations behind this figure are in sections 3.4 and 3.6 of the report. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ian. Again, I've had no written questions. Are there any questions from members on the report? Councillor Goldsack.
Thank you. Just a couple of points, Ian, on 3.6. And there, I don't know. So business rate relief has been received for the Grange, resulting in this underspend. Just curious as to why we get business rate reliefs on this building.
Sorry.
Okay, no, okay, I'll try again. Right. Right. I just wonder why we get business rate reliefs on this building when there's a lot of businesses around here that maybe don't get that. I'm just curious as to what makes us qualify for business rate relief. Do you want all the questions or do you want to answer that one? Okay, thank you. The other question was, I'll talk between the coughing. Bless your heart. The other point was, I understand that as it's a national project, we have to dig in and fight for any rates that come from the solar farm should the awful position happen and Sonica be accepted. Can we be assured as a committee that we will be right at the table fighting for anything that should that decision not go the way that the public wanted to go? Those were the two questions. Thanks, Ian.
Answering the second one, I mean, clearly decisions about whom will get the benefit of the business rates or the solar farm are some way in the future, but clearly I will be making, be doing every effort to ensure that we benefit from them in the most appropriate way. So yeah, you can have that guarantee from me. In relation to the reduction in business rates, can I take that away and come back to you?
Please do. It was a really generic question, and
Yeah.
and I'm sure there's lots of businesses out there that may be asking, well, hang on a minute, how can the council get business rate relief and we can't or whatever? So I just want to understand that from so that we know why.
To be honest, I think I knew about 6 months ago, but I've slept since then. I can't now remember.
Okay, thank you, councillor Goldsack. And as normally, and if you can circulate the answer to all members and we'll put it into the minutes. Any other questions from members? Any members wanting to debate the paper? I'm seeing nothing, in which case we're just asked to note this paper, so it's duly noted. Item 9 is assets update, and if Spencer Clark to introduce the paper. Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you, Chairman. Right, not too much to add tonight, as it is a big agenda. Just a couple of highlights, really. First one is that I had the privilege of going around to see the nursery. Now it's been opened, and it truly is a little world in miniature around there. And it's a very, there's a lot of investment gone in there by the new tenant, but it's quite an asset to the council going forward. And the second thing I'd just like to highlight is that this afternoon I also had the privilege of going to the changing pod at Soul. It's not quite ready for opening yet, but it is now fully kitted out and just been literally cleaned and serviced this afternoon for this to be open very soon, hopefully. So that's just a good bit of news. That concludes my quick update, Chairman. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you, Spencer. Thank you for that good news about the Soham pod. I've had 2 written questions from Councillor Whelan. Are you happy with the answers? Do you want to follow up? No, you're happy with that? Members, any other questions on this? And I'll take Councillor Goldstack, and then I'll come to Councillor Hunt as the asset champion, if I can. Councillor Goldstack.
Mine was just a comment. When we sit in here as elected members and we make decisions based on the information that we've been given to read and whatever research is, it's really heartening to then hear in this forum of the good that's come from the 2 projects that you just mentioned. And I don't want to gloss over that, you know, having a school that's you've personally visited, Spencer, and you know, it's a great example of everything that's good. That's wonderful. And the changing situation in our town of Soham, I can only say thank you. And you know, it's really heartening to hear. I just didn't want to gloss over that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Goldstack. Councillor Hunt.
Yeah, this isn't questions for Spencer. This is a comment, if I may.
No, I'd already gone on to comments, so you're fine.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to congratulate Spencer for just keeping an expanding role and solving the problems that arise, whether it's toilet cleaners being abused or whether it's drains in the car park. He fulfills all his tasks and does them so well. And I'm actually really delighted about the fact that we've got now a nursery within 20 yards of where we're sitting at the moment. And it just shows that we're trying to look after and accommodate people, residents of Ely of all ages. So when you walk past and you hear the delighted cries of 2- and 3-year-olds, you'll know that's another thing that I believe we're doing, and we're doing it well. So we intend to look after and consider all the residents of East Cambs, and I think the youngsters in the old Victorian school over here will thoroughly enjoy being here. And congratulations, Spencer, for preparing that building. So it was the mayor's office, it was a registry office, and now it's a nursery. Excellent. Thank you, Spencer.
Thank you, Councillor Hunt. Any other members wishing to comment? No, this is just for noting, so again, it's duly noted. I'd like to welcome Councillor Dupre to the meeting. We've just finished item 9, so we're about to go on to item 10. So item 10 is the UK Chair Prosperity and Rural England Prosperity Business Grant Scheme. I'd like to welcome Kieran Carr to introduce the paper. Over to you, Kieran.
Thank you, Chair. I'm bringing to Council for decision a proposal to deliver a UK Shared Prosperity and Rural England Prosperity Business Grant Scheme, and we provided papers to support the decision. The key points to note are the scheme, if approved, will open on the 1st of April 2024, closing on the 27th of September. In total, £310,511 will be available, of which £208,000 will be for revenue and £102,511 for capital. The fund aligns with the grant funding agreements in place with the combined authority to deliver a grant scheme under the 2 programmes. The scheme will make available to eligible businesses in the district funding opportunities that are also available with other districts across the county, so brings us in line. And finally, The economic development team have previous experience of delivering these schemes, and they've been very successful in the past.
Thank you, Kieran. I mean, this scheme is here to promote businesses to try that are looking to grow, and obviously more employment within the district. Members, do I have any questions on the paper? Any Councillor Trapp?
Thank you. Normally when we've had funding like this, there's been a cut-off date and we're considering bids after that date. Is this a first come, first served?
Yes, the intention is it's first come, first served.
Yeah, that's means people who've got to get the bids in, they may take some time, may be very valuable bids, but if they join the queue too late, could we not have it as a terminal, as we've had for other bids?
We can have a look at that. The intention was it was going to be a first come, first served. There are disadvantages and advantages to doing both ways. With a first come, first serve, you can make decisions quickly, obviously, around funded projects, but I accept the point about the cut-off date.
For you, Chair.
Sally,
We're bringing this to this committee, so we're giving people advance notice. Obviously, there's a couple of months for businesses to get their plans together ahead of the 1st of April start date.
I mean, I understand Councillor Trapp's point, but equally, obviously, from a business point of view, that they'll want to get on with it. They won't want to be waiting till September. But I think it's worthwhile. Maybe we can look at that. But I'm certainly not against the paper. Councillor Trapp.
I realise it's very, very much in advance, but perhaps one ought to be given something a window of about 2 weeks to say that these will be competitively considered within 2 weeks. So April the 1st to April the 14th or something like that, although wouldn't the East intervene? Something like that. So therefore, it's not, oh, look, this 1st of April, we've already got one bid. There you are, there's the money. So perhaps it should be a window. And I realise it is well in advance.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, any other Councillor Colbert?
To pick up the problem of people not being able to submit their applications early enough and missing the boat, is it feasible to do this in 2 tranches?
Yeah, it's just Sally just saying that there's danger that everything will go in the first tranche. But I mean, I understand the point Councillor Trapp's making, and it is a very valid point. But equally, the other side of it is obviously business won't want to wait for 9 months. Personally, I think we agree the fund, but we can certainly look at it to try and make it as amenable as we can to all businesses. Councillor Trapp.
Sorry, my suggestion is we wait a fortnight or something like that to make it within that period, not 9 months. I think. Did you say 9 months? I mean, it's
the closing date is the 27th of September, which is nearly
exactly.
9. That's where my 9 months is coming from. I understand totally where you're coming from, and it's not an invalid point. It's quite a valid point. Equally, I'm looking at the side of business. They wouldn't. Somebody got it in on the 1st of April, and they've got some good ideas to get forward with their business. May not want to wait 6 months for a yes or no. That's the point I'm making. But so I think personally, I think we go ahead with that wording, but I'm certainly happy to talk to officers outside the meeting to get some more, try and come some way to where you want to be.
Add one further point. So it is possible to release this to people, to organizations we think might benefit from it from today if this were passed.
So it doesn't open until the 1st of April.
The information can be shared from the report, so the guidance notes, so people are ready to apply from the 1st of April. But
Sorry, Appendix 1 can be shared with organisations. Thank you very much. That's what I wanted to know.
Yes, I mean, yes, it's a public document, so it can be shared with, public now. But, I understand your point. I think it's a valid one. Any other comments, members? We're being requested to approve this and agree the fund will open on the 1st of April, as we've said. I'm happy to propose it from the chair as it's purely opening the window. Do I have a seconder for that? Councillor Hunt, yeah, thank you. Members, all in favour of the proposal? Thank you. I think that's unanimous. Thank you for your contribution, Councillor Trapp, on that. Item 11 is the Growth and Infrastructure Fund scoring panel recommendations. Sally, if you could introduce the paper, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. As mentioned earlier, before I start, I'd like to draw members' attention to an error on page 3 of Appendix 1. In third paragraph down, it states that the match funding has been committed by Streatham Parish Council. This should read, been committed by Streatham and Wilburton CLT. The application form stated that the match funding had been committed by the Streatham and Wilburton CLT, and the application was assessed by the panel on this basis. The scoring panel met at the beginning of the month to assess the applications, and notes from this meeting can be found at Appendix 1. Details of the 5 eligible projects and the scores awarded can be found at Appendix 2. Having considered the applications, the recommendation from the panel was to request that this committee increases the amount of Cambridgeshire Horizons funding available to this scheme to just over 1.1 million to enable more projects to be funded. This would enable the Streatham and Wilburton CLT and the Wychford Parish Council projects to receive all the match funding they requested, and the remaining just under 15,000 to be awarded to Wilburton Parish Council. And in response to the question that was raised earlier, there were 18 letters of support from stakeholders and organisations submitted, and a list of those was part of the application form that the scoring panel saw.
Thank you, Sally. Members, any questions on Councillor Dupre?
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to ask officers what due diligence they have done on the applicants, and particularly where they say they are getting the match funding from. It is not clear to me, for example, that Streatham and Wilburton Community Land Trust has obtained this money from its own resources. The officers might be able to confirm that. I tried to find details of their filed accounts and so on online, but I couldn't find anything subsequent to, I think, October 2020 or 21. So as far as unless I'm looking in the wrong place, I can't see anything to help me determine the financial health of the bodies claiming that they are putting in their match funding. And I wondered what officers knew about that, please.
So at this stage in the process, we rely on self-certification of the applicants that match funding is available, but full due diligence will be carried out before a funding agreement is signed. This will include a review of accounts and evidence that match funding is secured, and that's actually set out in 4.4 of the report. So that's part of the checks that we do before we really sign any funding agreement, and any funding is only released upon receipt of invoices and evidence that any expenditure has been incurred.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Are there any sources of funding that are being put forward as match funding that would be regarded as ineligible to be counted as match funding? For example, if a body had got money from an authority in a previous round and was putting that forward as match funding, or if it had got money from another public body and was putting it forward as match funding, are there any criteria that would exclude a particular sum of money?
There is nothing in the eligibility criteria. They just have to provide their own match funding, and the only criteria is around the amount. So there's a minimum 10% match funding, and then depending on the level above that, the applicants scored more points.
Thank you, Councillor Bray. Councillor Whelan.
Thank you. You mentioned 18 letters of support were received. As we heard at the beginning of the meeting, it's been suggested that one of those letters in there was not actually a letter of support, but actually a letter of support for a completely different thing altogether. To what extent are we actually satisfied that those letters are actually letters of support? Because everything that was said earlier in the meeting suggests that perhaps this one needs to be looked at again a little bit more.
So we reviewed the letters, and Councillor Bray actually saw all the letters in full as well. They signified support for the project. A lot of them say to whom it may concern, and support for a GP surgery or the project specifically.
Sorry, but this isn't a GP surgery. The GP surgery is just part of this. So I'm just a bit confused as to why, if people are supporting a GP surgery, it's assumed they're supporting something else, which is not a GP surgery.
Because a lot of the letters went to the Streatham and Wilburton CLT, so they're writing in support of their project.
I was actually asked about providing a letter of support to Mearside Medical around their desire to get funding for various projects that they're currently undertaking. If that's what people thought that they were doing, then that's a very different thing. I would suggest that actually this probably needs to go back to be looked at again to make sure that there isn't anything like that, because I don't suspect that it's been looked at each letter in detail, and we need to get some kind of assurance that this is before we commit this kind of money when it could be used for other projects.
Thank you, Councillor Whedon. I've got Councillor Trapp next, then Councillor Inskip.
Thank you very much. I was on the approvals panel or the board that met. I have seen the letters. Most of the letters were for the medical facility. There was some other support for meeting places, but that could be also in the parish hall. I don't know if Streatham has a parish hall or not. So the majority of the letters were for a medical practice, nothing else. And that came from neighbouring villages, and I quite agree with them, because they had putting strain on their resources, their own surgeries, because Streatham did not have a surgery. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Trapp. I've got Councillor Inskip.
Well, I actually think Councillor Trapp's answered my question, because my question was going to be whether the letters of support were for GP surgery or for this particular project. And I wasn't at the meeting at the start, but I did hear the contribution from the chair of Streatham Parish Council, and we've clearly got one instance of a letter that was in support of a GP surgery, which at least in terms of the report, and I suspect what was presented to the panel, gave the impression it was in support of this particular project. So I think with that uncertainty, we've clearly got a real example of one letter where there's a clear, let's say, misinterpretation of what that letter requested. I think if we have got those other letters just refer, as Councillor Trapp has stated, they did, or many of them, to a GP surgery, I think we really need to understand whether those were, let's say, had a similar intent to the parish council one, or whether they should be interpreted as the officer described.
Councillor Inskip. Any Councillor Colbert?
Sorry. Forgive me if I've got confused with this. I now can't find what I thought I'd read, but I thought that I'd read that the Community Land Trust already had a commitment to provide a medical facility under the 106 agreement. I'm sorry if I've got that completely wrong, but I really thought that I read it somewhere.
We made that question.
Thank you, Councillor Colbert. Is it something we can?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, that is correct, apparently, yes. Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. Yeah, a Section 106 obligation doesn't necessarily require a successful applicant or the person that owns the condition to pay for a medical centre. It's about delivering a medical centre on the site. And my understanding is that the Streatham and Warburton CLT are making the land available for this project, which includes GP premises, yes. You know, in terms of the application for the funding that we are being asked to put forward, both in this and the SIL application that's also on our agenda tonight, it's around GP premises and an ancillary, effectively, Link cafe and kitchen, which the GP premises will also have access to. And then other items like, you know, the mechanical plant that's required and the shared facilities and landscaping and, you know, fees and architects and so on. So that is what this council is being asked to consider. I was on the scoring panel and Councillor Debray did in fact acknowledge that she had received and viewed all of the letters of support. And they did include information, you know, I can't say everyone necessarily cited all of the items that are proposed in this project, but they were letters of support for the project. And that is known to include, you know, and it's clear in the application form that it is for GP. The project is called The Link, and it's in its entirety, and it's quite normal for applicants in this process to put forward a description of their project in its entirety. The Link is about a GP premises, a cafe, and supporting facilities, and the work units. This council is not being asked to fund anything to do with the work units, but that is part of the building and the project. I can see here that the letters of support were received from Mearside Medical, which included comments from users, wider elements of Mearside Medical, the Cambridgeshire South Care Partnership, Ely Primary Care Networks, the Patient Participation Group, Haddenham Parish Council, and then various organisations, Safe Soulmates, Streatham Charity, the Women's Institute, Primary School, the Youth Centre, Wentworth Parish Council, Warburton Parish Council, Witchford Parish Council, Wickham Parish Council, and Streatham and Warburton Scouts. I think they have absolutely demonstrated support from the community, in many cases, a lot more than the other applications that we looked at and gave support to in both this round of growth and infrastructure funding and in previous rounds of growth and infrastructure funding. And it was, although there is an error in today's paperwork, and I'm sorry for that, it was absolutely clear in the application that the match funding was being provided by the applicant, which is Streatham and Warburton Community Land Trust. There is no expectation or anything in the application that said that the parish council was involved in any way. So this is purely an application by the CLT. And as I think our officer Sally has already confirmed, you know, there is no payment of monies until we get receipt of invoices. And there's a lot of mileage to go before that because planning application needs to come forward. And again, that is perfectly normal for projects of this type and secure the funding before they go down the route of spending money on applications, etc. That's normal and things that you know, similar to commitments we've made in the past. So I am really supportive of this project because I think to have GP provision in Streatham alongside the other elements that are coming forward with this to make it work and make it stack up as a whole is absolutely critical for our area. Everybody knows the difficulty that we have locally of getting GP appointments in the north of the district, and I wholly support Streatham, which is a growing community and has had this long ambition that it's worked for a very long time to have a GP surgery in the village. It is a rare thing to be able to land this for a village, and I fear if the community doesn't take this opportunity this time, it may well disappear forever because, you know, the direction of travel of GP surgeries is not to have small local GP surgeries, it's to have large facilities that people then have to travel to with all of the complications around that. And Mearside Medical have got support for this project from the wider NHS, and I feel we do need to give this our support. We've funded other GP provision and upgrades like the fantastic St Mary's surgery in Ely, and we've got others on our SIL list, and there will be other applications that no doubt come forward, and I think it's absolutely critically important, and I'm really pleased that the CLT have brought this forward despite the knockbacks last time round, and they've regrouped, they've changed their project to be, in line with the original vision, which, the CLT always said it wanted to provide the work units on the site, which it's doing, and making this GP surgery a possibility. So it has my absolute wholehearted support. And I'm very content that everything that's been raised tonight was properly considered and addressed and properly, put forward in the application.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I mean, we've veered into debate here, lots of questions, but don't worry. I've got Councillor Hunt, then Councillor Trapp, then Councillor Dupre. So we're now in, members, we're now in debate. Obviously, if you've still got a question, then please ask it.
Thank you, Chair. I haven't seen the minutes of the meeting, but I've attended many parish council meetings in Streatham. And on one occasion, quite recently, one of the items that came up and poked its head up was a request from Wilburton and Streatham, or Streatham Wilburton CLT, for support from the parish council for the application for a GP medical centre. And certainly that was discussed by the parish council, and they said, well, we're only giving consent to a doctor's surgery in our village. Why wouldn't we? And whether or not it was recorded by the clerk, I don't know, but I certainly heard that the parish council in Streatham were in favour of a GP surgery in their village. And that's without, they're quite right. I haven't heard anything at a meeting I've been to where the Streatham Parish Council were committing themselves to contribution. And in fact, on one occasion, one of the councillors said, well, we're not giving anything. So it was quite clear that there wasn't going to be any contribution money-wise. My understanding is that the match funding was coming from another source, and that would come. I take the view with a GP surgery in Streatham, but it's not just for the village. Although if you go to Streatham and look at what passes as surgery at the moment, I mean, it's certainly uninhabitable, and it's an absolute disgrace and lets down the village, which is growing and getting more people in it and desperately needs it. But of course, doctor's surgeries are things that the influence and the benefits spread out. And so a new doctor's surgery in Streatham would certainly help some of the people of Wickham, Little Thetford and Wilburton. And therefore, they will take some of that. If this doesn't go ahead, then the people of say Little Thetford will go into Ely, and they'll be put more pressure on existing services. Now, I want to see everybody looked after with proper GP facilities, and I believe that because of the fact that there's this overflow, I mean, you look at, if one isn't in Streatham, Wilburton people are going to get even more cramped in the Hadnam one, and the people in Ely are going to get more cramped. It's absolutely vital, and I'm fortunate of being a county councillor, and I have a fairly large patch that goes to Wickham and Erith Bridge and Little Thetford, and they will all benefit. This isn't just a benefit for the people of Streatham. This would be a benefit for the whole of, well, Gruntyfen. And I therefore think it is something that I've been staggered. I understand the feeling of the parish council that they felt they were going to be committed to finances that they perhaps didn't have or didn't want to spend. But certainly the feeling of the people that I know, they want to have a GP surgery. And if the match funding is coming from another source, I can see no reason why it shouldn't happen. And with most things that we do as a district council, we of course do most things through the parish councils, and that's the normal way of business. But it isn't necessary if you talk about a pedestrian crossing, or you talk about a grant. Sometimes it's a cricket club, sometimes it's a parents of a school, or sometimes it's in another group. In this case, it's a group which is called Streatham and Wilburton Community Land Trust. And I can see no reason, I wasn't on the committee or the panel that made this decision, But what I do know, and I've made it very clear to all the parishes I deal with, is I feel that the provision of health facilities is one of the most important things we as a district council do. And we should help and assist. And if we can able to help, how are we going to feel when people can't get a doctor's appointment ever? And we say, well, we had the opportunity, we had the chance, and we turned it down. Well, I can't be party to that. We must look after the welfare of the people we represent. And I feel I would not be looking after the people I represent if I put any hurdles in the way of this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor Hunt. I've got councillor Trapp next.
Thank you very much. It's two very eloquent speeches from councillors Bailey and Hunt. I'm sorry I won't be as eloquent, but there's a confusion here. No one is disputing the fact that one needs a medical facility. And as far as I could understand, the CLT is going to provide the land, and apparently I think the NHS is putting it up. That's not what is at stake here. What is at stake is the fact that, and I was not aware of this when the grant funding was there, I was on the panel, that actually there's this talk about an extra hub, or the link, whatever it's called, which according to Mr. Previtt's letter and his very eloquent statement, that the maintenance costs are going to be put onto the parish, which they're not. They're going to be just dumped on the parish, nothing. And also, I notice in this letter that there's this email that they are trying to refurbish and enhance the parish rooms. So we're going to have two sets of rooms here. I don't understand this. Why are we actually mixing up the medical facility with an extra set of rooms, which is going to be actually have to be maintained and supported by the parish council, who feel they cannot do that? And that will be increased. No one's against it.
Come in there. As I understand it, the maintenance cost refers to the previous application, not the current one we're looking at. Councillor.
Chair, there's no such thing as a point of clarification. Is this a point of order, or is it a point of
It's a point of explanation on what my speech, and I'm entitled to have a point of explanation on my speech. A chair will, I'm sure, back me on that. The point of explanation is that the existing parish room has an asbestos roof, and I doubt very much the NHS would want to have a new surgery with an asbestos roof.
Can I go back to councillor Trapp first? But the point I was saying about the maintenance, councillor Whelan,
I need to interrupt here because I thought that this was an application from the CLT. Now, what I'm hearing is that this is about a GP practice. Now, because all of this has been a discussion about GP practice, I need to declare an interest because I am on the patient participation group for Mearside Medical, who are the people who want to have a GP practice. I was not aware that this was an application purely for a GP practice. I thought it was for the CLT parish or building that they wish to put into the parish, of which the GP practice would subsequently be seeking to use part of that building. Now, on that basis, everything I've heard tonight has been about Mearside Medical and their need to do that. So I need to declare an interest in this item then.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bailey.
This is an application by Streatham and Wilburton Community Land Trust and them alone. They will take responsibility for delivery of this project if we grant them funding and it's able to go ahead. There is absolutely no suggestion that anybody other than the CLT will be responsible for the maintenance of the entire project, the entire building. The parish council will not be involved in any way in the maintenance. It will be for the Community Land Trust to maintain the building. The project is set out in...
Chair, can I ask whether you're going to, on a point of order, are you going to take speakers in the order in which they have indicated?
I will. I'm just trying to I think I need to come
Because
back.
we
to
can't
Councillor
keep
Bailey.
going back and back and back to
Took account-
councillors
I-
Bailey and Hunt.
I took a point of explanation, which, okay, was, but I'll come to you then, councillor Dupre.
I thought they'd interrupted councillor Trapp.
Had you finished, councillor Trapp?
Not really, but I'm not going to badger on here because I don't want to be repetitive. But I think this point about whether the maintenance is going to be supported by the CLT is something that has to be investigated, because it's privately, there's very much of concern by the parish council. Whether they're going to be landed with fees and some maintenance costs, which are they don't want to take, they can't take without putting up the precept. So something has got to happen here, and we've got to check that the CLT will be taking on this, as it's just explained by councillor Bailey, or whether it is actually what the parish council is saying, that they will be landed with the costs. So before we can vote on this, we really ought to be sorting out that.
I can come back to that. I mean, part of that will be through the due diligence anyway. Councillor Dupre.
Thank you, Chair. I was a member of the scoring panel. I did receive the 18 letters, but only on request. And I actually had a chance to see them about 2 minutes before the start of the scoring panel meeting. So it was impossible for me to read them in any depth. The main thing I wanted to check was the date on the letter from the parish council to see whether a letter of support from the parish council pre-May 2023 had been submitted as support of the current parish council for the current scheme. I noted that the date on the letter was December 2023. It struck me as slightly surprising that the parish council was alleged to be supporting the application. But of course, even if I had seen the letters in good time, I wouldn't have been able to do anything about it because they were marked as very highly confidential. And therefore, there was nobody, I couldn't talk to the parish about it. I couldn't talk to the CLT or anybody else about it because all the papers were confidential and we were strictly enjoined not to share them or discuss them. Now, I take it very amiss when I am being misled. And I take it even more amiss when a parish council, and maybe even other people whose letters may have been presented as supportive evidence of support to the scheme, may also have been misrepresented. Now, I don't know because the letters are confidential, so I've not been able to find out. Do the other people who've written letters think that they are supporting a GP surgery? Or do they think they are supporting the Community Land Trust's hub building? I don't know. It's clear that at least one of the letters thought it was supporting a GP surgery. And it is not clear to me that all the others were fully writing in support of a hub building rather than something different. It's no secret that this project by the CLT, in whatever iteration, has been hugely controversial to the extent of dividing the community, bitterly dividing the community. No one needs persuading about the benefits of having a GP surgery in this room, and certainly no one more than I, who have spent huge amounts of energy on trying to preserve a GP surgery in Priorsfield in Sutton. That's not the issue. We are all supportive of GP facilities. The issue is the project as a whole, how that is delivered, and the CLT appearing to run roughshod over the community and over the parish council to the extent of misleading this council. I cannot agree to go ahead with these proposals on the basis of what I have subsequently found out about those letters until we've had the opportunity to revisit what has happened and revisit the accuracy and honesty of what we have been told, and to go back to all of those who wrote letters of support and be able to have a conversation with them about whether they thought they were supporting a big community facility from the CLT, or whether, like the parish council, they were in fact supporting something else. I'm not happy And I cannot support the proposals here until that that part of the due diligence has been done, because I am very angry indeed that the parish has been treated in this way and that members and this council have been misled.
Thank you, councillor Dupre. I've got councillor Goldsack.
I'm going to withdraw half of what I was going to say because it's been covered, but I would just like to say, and apologies for the lateness of this, up until October, I was the chairman of Sarntown Rangers Football Club, who have not been awarded on this. So I just wanted it noted as a point of interest, just as councillor Whelan has done, that you know, there is an interest there, and I remain a member of that group of people.
Thank you, councillor Goldsack. I've got councillor Inskip wants to come back in, yes.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I've got the minutes of the Streatham Parish Council meeting in front of me from the 30th of November. And it says very clearly there in the minutes, to consider the request from Mearside Medical for a new letter of support for the Parish Council for GP surgery in the village. So that's very clear. I also note from those minutes that councillor Hunt was in attendance at that meeting.
I'm not sure what that tells us, but
well, I think
yeah.
it confirms what we've heard from the parish council, and I would expect councillor Hunt was already aware of what the parish council had considered. I think he said in his statement he hadn't seen the minutes, so I was clarifying the minutes, and I think hopefully that adds to the debate and gives us some more information.
I believe what he said was that he heard that they were in support of that, but he hadn't seen the minutes, was my understanding. But
they're available on the website for any of us who want to look.
Members, any other? Councillor Hunt.
Would you like me to give an explanation?
If it will help the debate, yes. But my understanding was that you said that you were at the parish council meeting when it was discussed, but you hadn't seen the minutes. But you believe that they were generally in support of the GP
The feeling was I haven't seen the meetings. I don't inspect parish council meeting minutes when I go to a parish council. It was on the agenda, I believe. It came up, and the people said, if all we're committing to is an approval because we want to see it, and then there was a general approval of that. But I didn't inspect the minutes to check it. I never have done.
Okay, thank you, councillor Hunt. Members, any more comments? Councillor Bailey.
Well, I would just like to suggest that we move to the vote. I do think it's worth noting that there are other projects other than the Streatham one, which I also support. I think, you know, the cycleway at Wychford Parish Council, you know, I understand it's, you know, potentially got some issues around, you know, more work to do around feasibility. And I would like to say that, you know, I wish we could have given more money to the other projects on the list, which are open to apply for SIL funding as well. So I'd like to say that to the unsuccessful applicants, and also Wilburton Parish Council that isn't down for all of the money that it wanted to see. In relation to the Link project, the application was very, very comprehensive. It was available to all members of the scoring panel. It clearly articulated what the project was about in its entirety. It clearly articulates that this council is being asked to provide financial support for the GP premises and a cafe and kitchen and ancillary, you know, things like the mechanical plant and the landscaping and architects' fees and so on. I am hugely supportive of that project. It will have to go through a planning application. Local residents will be able to object, or I hope many of them will be in support. This site has long been earmarked for a facility, and I think we absolutely need to move ahead. And you know, members of the scoring panel all had equal access to the applications, and I'm sorry if people didn't read the applications properly. That there is detailed information.
Chair, point of explanation. I object to that. I object to that entirely, because what I said, and it is true, is that...
Chairman, I didn't say anything about Councillor Dupre.
No, I'm going to object to that because that is an untrue representation of what I said.
But-
I said,
Councillor-
I said
Yes.
said that the letters of support had not been circulated to members until I asked for them and that I had 2 minutes chance to view them before the start of the meeting. And they demonstrate that things that were said in the application were not true.
Chairman, I didn't
That's
make
not-
any reference to that
I
at
know
all.
that's not really
I
a point of
absolutely
explanation.
didn't say anything about
Councillor
that
Bailey, yeah, go on.
whatsoever.
Carry on, yeah.
It's perfectly clear the Liberal Democrats want to stop this project from moving ahead. This side of the chamber is supportive of it, and I suggest we move to the vote on items 2.1, which I'm happy to propose, Chairman, because I don't think anybody's actually proposed it yet, and it has my wholehearted support and blessing.
Thank you for that. I've still got Councillor Whelan who wants to come in.
Just briefly, particularly for reasons that I've already explained, I think that it would be appropriate for us to have separate votes on these items. Particularly, well, that disbars me from actually voting on any of these things because this application is for Mearside GP surgery, which is not what was in here. Therefore, it is not appropriate for me to vote on that. I would like to be able to vote on the other items, even if I can't vote on that one.
Chairman, this application is not by Mearside Medical. It is an application by Streatham and Wilburton Community Land Trust to provide a building. Who they let it to is a completely separate matter.
Okay. I'm
Chair, I will come back on that because the whole debate has been about Mearside Medical, not about a building.
I mean, I'm happy to take them separately if it sort of alleviates the situation. But I want to try and move on if we can. I've got Councillor Bailey's proposed it. Sorry, did you want to come in on the debate, Councillor Miller?
Chair, can you please clarify, is Councillor Whelan's request to vote on the individual applications as a part of this agenda item?
Yes, purely because she's declared an interest on item A, so therefore.
So she just wants clarification on that one particular item.
Yeah.
The reason I asked the question is because we don't get to approve just individual items on here. We have to approve the whole agenda item, or we don't.
No, we can, chairman's discretion, we can take them individually if we want. Yeah. Councillor Goldsack.
I just want to share something I have been passed by the members of the public, and I think it's right that I should share it, that 3 of the named organisations that submitted the letters, I'm being told, I don't know, are on the CLT. So I'm just sharing that for the public domain.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. I was trying to move to the vote, but we've got Councillor Bailey.
I find that active members of communities are very often on multiple organisations in a community, and it tends to be those that work really hard trying to get things done that appear in lots of different locations like that. I have no problem with that.
In which case, surely they shouldn't be submitting letters of support for their own schemes.
Letters of support are from the organisation, not individuals.
Okay. Councillor Colbert, do you want to?
In view of the very considerable confusion about Streatham and Wilburton, I would very much like to see that particular application going back to the review panel.
I'm not sure it's confusion with this respect. But obviously there's disagreement, certainly. I've got a proposal on the table from Councillor Bailey that we accept the recommendations. Do I have a seconder to that? Councillor Goodall, yes.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I'd like to second that proposal. I was on the panel that selected everything, and I did read everything and chose my choices without any distraction or anything else. And so did everyone else who was on that panel. All the answers went, or the bids went through Sally for her to approve everyone's score. So I can't see where the problem's coming from now. So I'd like to second this motion.
Thank you, councillor Goodall. I will, as I said earlier, I will take them, or I'll take item A because councillor Whelan's got a declaration of interest. That's the only reason I'm doing it that way, to try to be fair to that member. But I will take members are requested to increase the growth in infrastructure funds from an allocated 707,000 to 1.138 million, and then approve the fundings of the following projects. Item B is the 423,000 to Witchford Parish Council, the 14,000 to Wilburton Parish Council, and then item 3 is delegate authority to the Director Community in consultation with the Chair to complete the funding agreements. Do I have, can I see those in favour of that, please? That's everything other than A, yeah. And then moving to the second part of it is approve the funding for the following project, which is 700,000 to Streatham and Wilburton Community Land Trust. Can I see those who are in favour of that, please? And those against? And obviously councillor Whelan's declared an interest. And obviously the points that have been noted in terms of due diligence will come out when Sally and the officers go through this. So I'm sure some of those points will be picked up. Thank you. Moving on to item 12 is the community infrastructure funding requests. Sally, again, if you can introduce that, please.
Thank you, Chair. There are two SIL requests in front of you this evening. The first one is from Streatham Wilburton CLT, who are requesting £510,000 towards the Link project, which we've just discussed in the previous item. The second request is from Sun Village College Staplow Educational Trust, who've requested up to £125,000 towards the provision of a 3G pitch in Soham. As you'll see from my report, they're in a bit of a quandary because we have the same match funding requirements as the Football Foundation, so we want all the match funding secured before they proceed. So to enable an application to be submitted to the Football Foundation, I'm suggesting to members that the SIL application to this project is conditional upon the match funding being secured by July. Both projects will deliver a new community facility and are therefore included on this council's SIL infrastructure list and as such are eligible for SIL funding. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Sally. Members, any questions on the paper? Councillor Goldsack.
Again, apologies for the lateness, but I'm not sure. I need to take legal advice as the most recent chair up until October, and when this was divided. I've been involved in the project for the 3G pitch at Soham from the outset. Am I able to vote on this, please?
You don't have a current interest.
I have no interest at this moment in time, nor will I.
That's fine.
Thank you, Councillor Goldsack. Members, any other? Councillor Whelan.
Just to clarify, the allocation to Streatham Wilburton Community Land Trust, is this for the same item as we were talking about on the previous one?
Yes.
In which case that puts me in the same position as it did on the last one. Okay.
Thank you, Councillor Whelan. Any members, any other questions? No, in which case, any other members do you want to debate this item? Any comments? Councillor Trapp.
Some reservations were made about the previous growth infrastructure fund to Streatham and Wilburton Community Land Trust. Shouldn't we actually be making sure that before we grant this, we should be actually looking into that and making sure that it is because it looks to me as if it's actually for the Link project and nothing to do with the GP surgery. Seems to be it's funding for the parish, for the rooms rather than for the surgery, which I believe is going to be separately funded anyway.
So the application is for the whole project, which is called the Link. So that's the GP surgery and the other elements.
Members, any other comments? Councillor Dupre.
Just once again, 3.4 says the application included a letter of support from Streatham Parish Council. It did not, and therefore that needs to be corrected because Streatham Parish Council is quite clear that it is not supporting the proposal being put forward by the CLT.
Yes, please go ahead.
The sill pot that is being requested to be used for the CLT, this is the general pot that is retained by the district, is it? It is not the parish's sill funding
No,
pot.
this is the district still.
Right, okay, thank you.
Councillor Hunt.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm looking at page 1 and I'm looking at 3.4, and it just says here quite clearly, the application, including a letter of support from Streatham Parish Council, subject to planning permission being granted. Work is expected to start May 2024. So there's no question about them.
And that is not true.
No, I mean, I think you've misquoted that there, Councillor Hunt, because it.
I was quoting that because
there's a full
it
stop
said that
between
there was-
application and subject. I think the point at the bottom is subject, is talking about being subject to planning permission being
Yeah,
granted. That's
okay,
purely a district
I
council.
accept that.
I mean, the point that was made earlier was there wasn't a letter of support from the parish council. Is there or not?
So the letter, the parish council saying the letter isn't supporting the project.
Oh, okay, yeah, okay, fine. So that's what was clarified earlier. Members, any other comments on this? In which case, can I have a proposer on this?
On the basis of the legal advice earlier, I'm very happy to propose this.
Okay, thank you, councillor Goldsack. Do I have a seconder?
I'm prepared to second.
Okay, thank you, councillor Miller. In which case, we're being asked to approve the allocation of 510,000 to the Streatham and Warburton Community Trust Link project and the allocation of up to £125,000 to the Soham Village College 3G pitch, project. You want to make you want the same?
Sorry, yeah, because obviously it would be better to do it that way.
Okay, I will accept that because you've got that declaration of interest. I will be amenable to that. So we're going to vote first on item A then. Can I have those in favour on item A? And those against? And those abstaining? Thank you. And then item B is the allocation to the Soham Village College 3G pitch project. Those in favour? That's unanimous, I think. Yeah, thank you. Okay, thank you. Moving on then, item 13 is the service delivery plans 2023-2024. That's a 6-month update. We did have this at our last meeting, and I think that it was asked to come back to this meeting because I think there was some confusion on the colour scoring, I think.
Thank you, Chair. We did discuss the colours at the last meeting, and as reporters for noting, and we discussed the item last time, I don't propose to say anything further except to remind members that the end of year reports and the new service delivery plans will be presented at the March meeting of this committee, and service lead will be present to answer any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Members, any questions? Any comments? I'm seeing nothing, in which case we just asked to note that report. So then moving on to item 14. Is Tracy, you're going to?
Sorry, I just finished scribbling, Chairman. Thank you. As you'll remember from, I'm trying to remember, as it was 3rd of July, Finance and Assets Committee, we did resolve to make a number of appointments to internal drainage boards at that time. There were still some vacancies, and there are still some vacancies as well. And subsequently, we made an approach to former councillor Chaplin to see whether he was willing to continue on the internal drainage board. And he came back to us in December and said, yes, he would like to continue. So that's why this report's here today, to see whether you're prepared to support that application.
Thank you, Tracy. I want to make an amendment to that if I can. I mean, councillor Goodall before the meeting expressed that he would be interested in covering the vacancy on Burnt Fen drainage board. If I got that correct, councillor Goodall?
Yes, Chair, as Burnt Fen is basically Sheepy Hill, which is a part of Littleport Ward, so I thought I'd come forward as a councillor.
Okay, well, thank you for that. Hopefully members will be happy with that. It's better to get a volunteer than a press gang member. So we're voting on councillor Goodall onto Burnt Fen Drainage Board, and obviously previous councillor David Chaplin, who was my co-councillor when I first got onto this council. So good to see David back. So everybody in favour of that? Oh, sorry, apologies. Yeah, I've jumped ahead. You have a proposer on that, councillor Goldstein.
Yeah, as a member of an IDB and very active on this, I'm very happy to propose this.
I'm happy to second that from the chair. So members, with that amendment to the paper, which hopefully you've got, Tracy. Everybody in favour? Thank you.
Buy one, get one free.
Item 15 is the forward agenda plan. Tracy, any comments to make?
Sorry, Chairman, there's no further changes that I'm aware of at the moment, but as you can see, the agenda plan for this committee remains fairly full.
As we touched on earlier on the minutes, the draft climate change chapter is coming to that March meeting. That brings us on to item 16, which is the bereavement centre full business case. Now I'm aware that obviously members will be aware there is an exempt paper on this, which obviously if we need to take that, we will have to go into private session. I'll start off by asking, in the debate on this, are any members wishing to ask questions or make comments on the I'm not trying to stop the debate. If you want to go debate the exempt paper, then please do so. You do. Yeah.
Chairman, can I suggest then that perhaps does Isabel want to introduce the report, and then obviously if we want to get into the exempt session, we can do that.
Yeah, okay. What I was just say is, if Isabel can introduce it, we'll then go into exempt session. We will then come out of exempt session for the vote. So the vote will be held in public session. Okay, thank you, Isabel.
Thank you, Chair. So before I start, I just wanted to correct something on the in the recommendations, just so that we're clear when we're talking about each item. So in item number 2.1, item 5, it should say as set out in section 4.11, and in the following section it should say set out in section 4.16. So I do apologise for those typos. Sorry, the next item. So 2.16. 5. Sorry, 2.15
in the recommendations.
Sorry, can you just go through? So 2.14, it should be 4.11, not 4.4, and in 2.45, 2.15, it should say 4.16, not 4.8. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Isabel.
Okay, thank
you. Sorry. You now want to introduce it?
Yes, if I may, I'm
Sure.
just going to, I'm not going to repeat everything that's in the document, but I would like to just go through some of what to filled out some of the proposals around this. So so just to remind members, this is a looking for approval for a facility that includes a crematorium, natural burial areas, a pet cemetery, modular functional rooms to support the facility, as well as chapels, as you would expect, and welcoming and meeting areas. The whole facility will be using an electric powered cremator and with green energy produced on site. And then the landscaping and the surrounding areas will still be able to be used for passive recreational use. So the full business case sets out some strategic objectives that the council wanted to achieve back in 2020 when the original outline business case was approved. It delivers key community infrastructure and regenerates a brownfield site. It is also creating 6.5 jobs, so 7 jobs, and secures a biodiversity asset in the district. And obviously it also achieves our green aims around creating green energy on site. When we looked at the original feasibility and needs analysis for this facility, we were able to establish that following some research that is contained within the exempt papers, that this facility would be viable at 535 cremations per year, with the assumption that that was based on 0 borrowing for the facility. And I'll talk a little bit more about the financial appraisal in a moment. However, the original business case set out potentially a 70 to 90% market share. I have undertaken a review of that and reduced it down to a 70% market share that will be achieved by year 4 of the project. The competition appraisal demonstrated that there would be some impacts on local facilities, predominantly the facility within March, and to a lesser degree, the Huntingdonshire facility as well. However, it also demonstrated that it would provide for additional capacity that is needed at peak times, where there are challenges within the market, where those key timings are most desirable. And the competition appraisal also spoke to 22 funeral directors within the area, and there was a 68% return rate from that competition appraisal. So in terms of the ecological appraisal, obviously the facility has really developed as a biodiversity asset for the district, and it was clear from the surveys that any future activity at the site needed to be carefully planned, and there needed to be an ecology management plan is now required for the site. There is limited use for the site as it's now a country wildlife site. However, through the planning process, the application was able to achieve agreement around passive recreational activity so that the facility could still be used by the wider community that weren't necessarily using it for the bereavement centre itself. And then finally, in terms of the renewable energy appraisal, we were able to establish that we could build an electric cremator there and meet 74% of that the energy demand during the spring and summer through solar PV. I'm just going to touch on the investment appraisal. So obviously this project, the outline business case was considered back in 2020. I took over the project and have done a complete review of all the financial assumptions that make up this project. So all the inputs around costs and income have been updated to the end of October 2023. And key items that have been adjusted have included fully updated build costs, a reappraisal of all income assumptions for the known market. So that is where we've been able to establish what costs are and likely market capture are. There's been a prudent reduction in unknown markets such as memorialisation and the pet cemetery, and we've updated all the operating costs in line with charges at the moment. The financial appraisal demonstrates that secondary income from burials and memorialisation supports the financial business case. It's not just incumbent on the crematorium itself. And that additional income allows the cremation costs to remain very competitive and delivers on that best value ambition that the council wanted to provide for East Cambs residents. The proposal here is to apply SIL to cover the build cost. This will de-risk the project. And just to confirm that by November 2024, the amount of SIL which is in the other pot is expected to be in excess of the build costs as set out here. So no further borrowing is required. And however, I did provide a summary of what the impact of borrowing to this facility would be. And this, to be clear to members, the recommendation is that no borrowing is undertaken. The financial business case shows that in year one there is a deficit, simply because this is about establishing the facility in the marketplace. But by year two, the facility would move into surplus and the business builds over a number of years. The total cost of the facility, now that all the prices have been updated and costs, is 9.06 million inclusive of all costs. And the proposal here is that we operate the facility in-house, so it's a council-run facility, as this protects the long-term asset and provides much more flexibility over the service offer in the long run and the opportunity, if it arises, to support the MTFS. I just wanted to reflect, it's been a long time since the original business case came forward, so I just wanted to also reflect some changes in the bereavement industry and the changes that have been ongoing really since the pandemic. Obviously, we've had a cost of living crisis as well, and that has changed consumers' behaviours. We've seen an increase in direct cremations, which basically means cremations without an attended funeral. So the market is changing considerably at the moment, but it has been for a number of years. The Competition and Markets Authority actually did a review back in 2020 to ensure that there was more transparency and choice for customers. And this work is still ongoing, and we're expecting to see some further legislation around this. There's been a general increase in both the types of funerals that consumers are choosing for their loved ones. And there's lots of work in the background where industry bodies are starting to promote different types of funeral arrangements, financial agreements, prepayment plans, and that sort of thing. So overall, the cremation industry is, the bereavement industry is in significant flux. However, the drivers here have been to create more choice for customers and more transparency over cost. Finally, I just also want to draw out that the planning permission that was granted back in October expires in October 2025. So if this were to go forward and be approved, there are further surveys, ecological surveys and groundwork surveys that would need to take place. So pre-commencement conditions essentially that we need to undertake throughout 2024 and have approved. And then there's the potential to commence work, the building works on site in early 2025. There is also a proposal that we would bring on board, no project of this scale is without risk. So we'll be bringing on board specialist project managers that specifically will act as client side that have direct experience of developing both cemeteries and crematorium. And we propose that there will be further community engagement as the final designs, specifically around the landscaping and how that can be used for the community, will also take place as we go through the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Isabel, for that introduction. Okay, members, if we can I will submit a proposal that we move into private session and that the press and public be excluded during the consideration of the remaining items. Sorry, did you?
Ask questions.
Sorry, I wonder whether we can actually ask questions which are on the white paper as opposed to on the blue paper first.
Yeah, Kevin, I was going to suggest that if there's any questions that can be in public session, we can take them now. Anything that you have for exempt session, then obviously if you can park those for now, and then we can do those when we do go into exempt session.
I'm
But if
happy
there
to
are
do that.
Things,
I'm
that's
happy to
fine.
do that, providing we don't end up repeating it in exempt session, that you know, virtually the same question with one or two things added. But
And presumably we
Councillor-
would also make comments in public session
yes,
on.
again, yeah.
Yes, if there, I think that equally applies. If there are things that can be debated in public session, then that's acceptable. And again, if there's things that you need to then debate in exempt session, we'll also have to do that then as well. It's the separation aspect.
So in terms of questions, I've got Councillor Whelan first, then Councillor Inskip.
Thank you. And I mean, these are figures directly from page 5, so they are definitely within there. Just curious that a return of 3.6% in the best sort of years of this project before tax, is that in line with what we would actually be expecting from a product that is this higher risk? And obviously that information is in there on page 5. And secondly, the decision has been made to run this in-house. And as it refers to in 4.16, it mentions there, provides the best VAT recovery model. It certainly provides the best VAT recovery model in terms of the building of the facility. What advice has the council received on the impact on the council itself, the increased financial burden that there will be in terms of resource for managing the partial exemption that this will generate, and the impact in terms of cost upon the council of the partial exemption that this will put the council in? Has external advice been taken on all of that? And are you certain that there is no additional cost to the council of making that decision from a VAT perspective?
So we were provided with some external advice in relation to the build costs, and also that did cover future operating models that were being proposed. There were 3 that were being considered at the time, which was an outsourcing model, outsourcing to a council company, and then entirely keeping the service within house. I'm not a VAT expert, and it's a very complicated area, hence we got advice. This was debated, and I will have to defer in terms of the overall position of the for VAT relating to the council's position to the finance director.
Ian, do you want to?
As members may or may not be aware that as a local authority, we get a 5% de minimis level for exempt VAT on exempt income. The figures I have seen, and I believe, you know, the figures are that once the crematorium is in operation, the impact of the VAT will still be within our 5% de minimis level, and so therefore it'll have no impact on the council's ability to recover its VAT, and indeed we will be able to recover the VAT on the expenditure in relation to the exempt income. So as a project in that is sort of detailed in this as in 4.16 number 1, that we believe that we'll be able to continue to recover all the council's VAT once the bereavement centre is in operation.
Thank you, Ian.
Can I?
Do you want to come back on?
Yeah, can I just suggest that it would be extremely valuable for that to be run past a professional VAT accountant. I have dealt with partial exemption. I have done an awful lot, and I can assure you that the work involved is enormous, and you will need to think about the resource implications of that. And it is not quite as simple as, you know, it sounds. While it sounds like it keeps under the de minimis levels, 5% and 7,500, it's very, very easy to go over that and all of a sudden find that there is a massive additional cost.
Thank you, councillor Whelan. I've got councillor Inskip next.
Yeah, I've got three questions. I'll do them one at a time so that the answers are clear. So in 4.63, it says the project impact will be far less for Huntingdon Town Council crematorium. This can be mitigated by close working between publicly owned crematoria to mitigate unnecessary competition and to better manage the peak operating hours. Can I have a bit more clarity about what the close working would, what does that mean?
So we have not explored that as yet, but the whole point is so that we don't compete directly with the publicly owned facility at Huntingdonshire. And that we complement. So there's, within the needs analysis, it demonstrated that there was more demand at peak times. There wasn't enough capacity at peak times. And therefore there's an opportunity to work alongside Huntingdonshire in that respect.
So I guess actually a supplementary question for that, is that allowed under the Enterprise Act 2002?
I don't know the answer to that.
Could I suggest we take advice on that before we pursue that path? The next question I've got is, so on page 5, it talks about the maximum market share after 4 years is 70%. Do I assume that that maximum market share is based on, let's say, competing crematoria not reacting to the additional competition? In other words, not reducing their prices?
So the model has lots of sensitivity within it. So which is why there's assumptions around what is the minimum that the model, that the facility would break even, which is that 535, which also includes significant numbers of direct cremations as well, which again lowers the cost generally. So because of that level of flexibility, if another crematorium were to change its prices significantly, with that amount of flexibility that we have in the model, we're confident that that's not going to significantly affect the competition or our ability for market share. It's also worth saying that the model has lots of sensitivity around RPI as well and cost brackets. So again, we're confident because of that flexibility within the financial model that that's not going to attract competition. And the final thing it's worth saying is that yes, that there is competition in the market, but this is about consumer choice and about the location of where a facility is, which also drives choice in the market as well, which that currently isn't there at the moment. That there isn't that opportunity for someone to use a facility in East Cambs, and that's why overall the whole model is very prudent in terms of that competition, but actually it's a very low benchmark that I'm satisfied with.
Okay, I think we've potentially gone to the blue papers, but I think what you're saying is that you think that there isn't a risk of going below the 500, but then we've just spent £9 million of still money on something that's only breaking even. Have I understood that correctly?
Did you want to come back on that as well?
Sorry, sorry, can you repeat what the question was?
So if I understood what you said, is you're confident that even with competition, you wouldn't fall below the break-even point, but then the flip side of that is that we could, with intense competition, be only at the break-even point.
So my understanding from the outset of this project, the strategic objective was the council was to build a community facility. What we have done is built a business case that demonstrates that the facility will break even. So to provide both a long-term multi-generational asset for the community that can be used without adding additional cost to the MTFS. And we've also demonstrated that it secures the biodiversity on the site and to do something with that site. My understanding at the outset of this project, and I do apologise, I wasn't here when the original business case was considered, but it wasn't to generate surplus revenue money. The aim was to build a community infrastructure.
And my last question. So you talked about the changing market, and clearly one aspect of that is the prepaid plans that, for example, private crematorium operators use quite widely. Is that a product that the council-run facility could provide, or are we not able to do that, given that we're a public body?
So there's some further work going on with that at the moment, and looking at how those prepayment plans change, and that they need to be the Financial Conduct Authority is interested in how they're managed. So there's a lot of change going on there in that particular market. So I can't comment on in the future, would we be able to provide a similar sort of service? What I would say though is those prepayment plans don't necessarily cover the end destination. They tend to cover the funeral arrangements. And obviously this is not a funeral. We're not discussing providing funeral services. We're discussing providing those end destinations for loved ones.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Inskip. I've got Councillor Trapp next.
Thank you very much. Sorry, it's 5.4. It says current secured funds in the still other pot in inverted commas 783. I'm trying to square this with the reserve accounts that we presented in item 7, appendix 2. What are these? This other pot. There's a still there of 10,435. 10 million, sorry, 435, but not 783. Or is that the 783 part of the commitment from that 10 million? Sorry to spring it on you, so at the last minute. It's in the reserve accounts.
So that's the total pot, and then there's a breakdown. We obviously allocate to different pots within the overall seal.
So 7.83 has already been committed to this pot, or although it's called other pot, and we're looking to add to that during the course of this year.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you for that. Members, any other questions? I know Councillor Dupre intimated she wanted to comment on things, so I'll open it up to the public debate in the public session. And did you want to go first, Councillor Dupre? Or? You're the only one at the moment who's intimated they wanted to speak on it rather than a question.
I mean, I think this crematorium has been rebranded as a bereavement centre, but in fact, it's not even a crematorium. What it is a laundrette. And it doesn't really matter, it seems to me, to the administration what goes on there. The primary purpose of this enterprise is to take developer contributions that have been meant to improve facilities in local communities and laundromat them into ready cash to subsidise the council tax. Now, I've said that before. I've said that before at a meeting of this full council a couple of years ago. And I was given the very firm impression from the group opposite that they absolutely endorsed my understanding of that was what they were seeking to do. So the history of the proposal, it was taken out of the council's corporate plan for 2 years so that it could be worked on in secret and so that public money could be spent on it in secret. It's unpopular with the public. We know that from the response it's received. The location, which is described as more convenient, is actually more convenient only to those who are closest to its main competitor. It's more convenient for people in Meeple to go there, maybe Sutton, but in fact not more convenient for the vast majority of residents in East Cambridgeshire. And if you were to choose to build a facility based on its suitability of location, Meeple is not the place you would choose. Something else is going on here. It's talking of location, it's right next door to a very obviously smelly biodigester. And it's next to quarries sending lorries full of aggregate every minute down the A142. And it's clear from the public papers that this works financially, if it works at all, only on the basis of launching a price war with its nearest competitor. That's what this is about. And I'm rather surprised at the openness in the public paper of the suggestion that this council will work on its facility with the facility run by Huntingdon Town Council in what can only be described from what we've heard. There is a word for that, it's a cartel. And I've looked up the definition of a cartel, and it's a combination of independent commercial or industrial enterprises designed to limit competition or fix prices. And that is exactly what is being described in public in this report. That seems to me quite extraordinary. There are other questions that I'm sure not only I, but other members will want to ask on the private papers. I'll be at a disadvantage because I've come straight from Harlow, where I've been all day not expecting to be on this committee tonight. And of course, the private papers by definition are not on the public website, but I will do my best to remember what I was going to ask, and I will have some questions about that. But I wanted to register, while we were still in public session, my grave concern at the secrecy behind this, the lack of preparation behind some of these things, the lack of research, the lack of analysis of risk, and the open statement that we are going to launch a cartel with Huntingdon in order to limit their competition and our competition with Meeple in order to launch and maintain that price war with them without actually, it seems to me, understanding where that might take us. This is even worse than what I thought was going to happen when we first got sight of the first real information about this paper a year and a half after the secret work had been going on about it, and I'm just astonished.
Thank you, Councillor Dupre. I've got Councillor Inskip, then Councillor Bailey.
So I echo a lot of what Councillor Dupre has said. I think we're saying that the statement seems to be made that this is something that the community wants the community infrastructure levy or £9 million of it paid on. But for the best part of 18 months, we know that the plans were prepared in private for this with no involvement from the community. We know that that it was actually removed from the corporate plan whilst that was being done, so there wasn't visibility to the public that it was being worked on. We know that when those plans became public, that the public reaction was anything but positive. We know that when the planning consultation was put forward, it was something like 85% of people were opposed to the development. We know that this facility won't even be the closest facility for a large part of the district. So we're spending £9 million of community infrastructure levy, which predominantly benefits just one corner of the district. And what concerns me most is we're not exactly overwhelmed with community facilities in East Cambridge. We've got significant growth. We only get the community infrastructure levy once, and we only have one opportunity to use that money to improve the facilities for people in the district. And there's a huge opportunity cost if we are spending and committing £9 million on a facility that every indication we have isn't wanted by the public. And then pushing back all of those other requests that we get time and time again from the public, which we could be funding if we wanted to use this SIL money in a way that aligns with, I think, the real intent. I don't think it was ever intended to be used to create these sorts of facilities to go into competition with nearby private sector providers.
Thank you, Councillor Inskip. Apologies to Councillor Bates. I forgot Councillor Trapp. He was actually in front of Councillor Inskip, so apologies, Councillor Trapp.
Thank you. I don't mind where I go in the batting order. I'm not a very good batsman. Well, I mentioned, it was mentioned that it was a community facility. Actually, Councillor Sharp and myself, it will be very far away from our wards. It's not where we should be. That's one thing. I'm also surprised that we're not spending SIL on really actual community projects. We've had people saying, right, why do we have a splash pool in Ely or BMX facility? Now, of course, they could be funded by other means as well, but we're not putting forward anything for the community like that. For instance, one could have had a big sculpture which might be attractive, rather like the Angel of the North. I don't think we want an Angel of the South, but you know, there is other things that can be done with this money, which are for the community, rather than a very specialized big pot of money that goes into one project. So, yeah, I mean, you know, yep, the administration has set their heart on this. It's, you know, and it'll go through, I suppose, but it's not the right thing to do.
Thank you, Councillor Trapp. I've now got Councillor Bailey.
Thank you. I do feel that I have to address some of the frankly disrespectful comments that have been made, Chairman. Really, to talk about this as being, it would be better rebranded as a laundrette, I think is hugely disrespectful to, you know, the facility that we're trying to create and the motivations for which we're trying to create it. And I want to take people back to the motivations of the administration to talk about the fact that, you know, it was worked up in secret. We were clear about as far back as I think 2015 to 2019 corporate plan that we wanted to develop a crematorium in the district. We hadn't got any notion of a location at that point, and we were clear about that. We had industry expert advice that said, you need to get to a certain point behind the scenes, otherwise you will be subject to, you know, very, very fierce legal challenge and activity if you're not very careful. So we took that at face value, and it is perfectly normal for councils and other organisations to work up business cases and investigate opportunities that are, you know, in the commercial sphere. Privately. There is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. To talk about this is unpopular. I will address that in the comments that I want to make in positive support of this project. You know, I think Councillor Inskip talked about a lack of analysis on risk. That is absolutely not the case. And we've been presented with significant material on that subject. That is very reassuring. Councillor Inskip talked about 85% of people being opposed to the development during the planning application. And I will address that comment as well, because that is completely and utterly wrong. It's absolutely wrong. And Councillor Trapp thinks that we're not spending SIL on other community projects, which is also very, very wrong, I'm afraid. We've spent enormous sums of SIL, and I will outline some of that. But I want to take us back. So in 2016, this council did hold an ambition to build a crematorium in our growing district. We don't have one. And our absolute motivation is was and still is to provide a quality service for people closer to home, and at lower prices, because there is artificial inflation in the market going on about services that people have to travel significant distances to get to. And there is this issue around capacity at peak times as well. Selecting a site is not an easy process. There are very, very strict planning restrictions on where you can build crematoria in the National Planning Policy Framework. And when you start looking around, it is not easy to comply with those restrictions. The Meeple site became available much later in 2017 because it had to be closed by the then provider as an outdoor centre following a very serious arson attack, and frankly, ongoing issues around viability and financial issues, which it had had for years. The setting is really very beautiful. It's got a special atmosphere at that site, and I think it's why local people really love it and care about that site. And we believe that it will be a very supportive setting for bereaved families. It's got spaces for quiet reflection, including the lake and other natural assets that we think will make it a very welcoming site and facility for families to perhaps revisit in the future should they wish to remember loved ones. And I don't think many crematoria have that feeling amongst people. And I think the opportunity to walk around the lake and have, memorial services and reflections on the loved ones that have gone is unique, actually. There's no doubt that the old outdoor centre was a very much loved facility, and that was clearly expressed in the public engagement process. But I'd remind Councillor Inskip that received 188 responses out of a district that has 90,000 residents, and 85% of those people said that they had a very important historical family allegiance to the Meeple Outdoor Centre. So I can understand the sentiment that they were expressing of their love for the previous outdoor centre. And I share that. I used to go there. I've lived in this area all my life. I spent many happy hours at Meeple Outdoor Centre, and that's why I know what a special site it is. And amongst the council, of course, worked very hard to pursue keeping the site as an outdoor centre. And in fact, we tried twice, cross-party, including Councillor Dupre at the time, to secure an operator for the site as an outdoor centre. And we tried other uses as well. But the chosen provider who wanted to develop it as an outdoor centre dropped out once they started getting into site investigations and had serious concerns about financial viability, which frankly stacked up with everything all of the previous providers had said to us. It's long struggled financially. And what we know now, of course, is that the biodiversity and ecology that's present on the site means that high impact leisure use simply isn't possible. So the use that people are hankering after, some people are still hankering after, just cannot take place if you want to respect the biodiversity and ecology that is on the site and exists now. And that is absolutely what this side of the chamber does want to do. And in fact, when those 188 people that responded to the public engagement exercise were questioned about the discovery of rich ecology and biodiversity on the site, and when it had been explained that the proposed crematorium project had at its core, the aim of protecting and further enhancing that ecology, 73% of respondents considered it to be very important and 16% to be important. So that aspect of the proposal was very well supported by those respondents. 89% of people overall considered that to be important once they understood that there were restrictions on the site. And I think it's also worthy of note that the planning application itself, which Councillor Inskip seems to think that 85% of people in the district were opposed to the development during the planning application. The planning application, I looked at it today, it did actually only receive 3 responses from residents in total, one of which was supportive, one was an objection and one was neutral. So this planning application did not cause a great deal of interest amongst the population.
Can I ask you to start summing up, please?
Okay. It is a designated county wildlife site, and we do have the opportunity to keep it open for low impact leisure purposes. We've taken a long time to work up this full business case with industry experts. And to be clear here, the finances are not the motivation. It's about seeing, you know, that it's obviously comforting to see a positive business case that means it's lower risk for the council. But this is about offering a really great service at lower cost in a beautiful setting. And, you know, our community deserves this facility. And just finally on SIL, because I must correct, we have spent millions of SIL funding. It's gone to support new community centres, the District Leisure Centre, cycle routes, footbridges, schools and learning hubs, GP surgeries, new and improved roads, sports facilities, cemetery land, a new theatre in Soham, Ely Museum upgrades, support for many parish council improvements, halls, and over 5.7 million has been given directly to parish councils to support their projects. We've also got very significant sums put aside and we'll continue to replenish those and increase those pots for water and flood management, improved health facilities and other community infrastructure. The SIL money replenishes very quickly. So I can understand that some Lib Dem members don't support this proposal, but I really hope that you can understand and accept and respect that we're working hard to deliver a really high quality facility and service for residents that we hope will be supportive to them and will feel special and that a facility that will become a much loved community asset.
Thank you, Councillor Bailey. I've got Councillor Hunt, then Councillor Inskip. I don't want to stop members debating this.
My point is a point of personal clarification.
Oh, okay, in which case I'll take that now then.
Councillor Bailey queried the figure I made of 85%. Let me just be clear on where the source is for that. The planning application had a statement of community involvement provided with it, and that in that document it talks about the survey that was conducted. It says the final question of the survey, question 28, gave the public the opportunity to provide any last comments and views. It says 123 people, not 3 people, 123 people responded, and it says sentiment held for 13%, against 85.4%.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Inskip. I'll now go to Councillor Hunt. As I said, I don't want to stop debate. I don't want to curtail it, but obviously.
If I may, Chair, I'll contribute because I'm asking for a comfort break before we go into special. Before we go into.
I was going to suggest that, Councillor Hunt.
But I thought it would be a good
before
time.
we go into final session. Yeah.
But you're not always looking down here, catching my hand, Chair.
No, that was in my mind as well.
I take on board, Chair, the need for a community facility, and Councillor Trapp was keen to say it should be a community facility. Now, I don't think 50% of a population play football or 50% of a population play rugby. But what I do know is that 100% of us are going to pass away. And so therefore, and if you've got an 80% of people want to be cremated as opposed to burial, I think you've got something that serves a huge amount of the population. And to say it's not a community facility, I think is rather cavalier. Talking about cavaliers, I actually sort of feel that some people on your side could be a little bit less casual with your use of the English language. It seems to me that it varies between being a cartel in one case when people are working together, but I use the word team, which means working together for mutual benefit. And if that's a cartel, well, I apologise for my education. In terms of distances, I had the opportunity the other day to drive from Ely and went past the site we're talking about. Actually, it was about 10 miles and 10 minutes. It really was. It was very little distance and it was very quickly. And of course, with what we're going to do planning or what we're suggesting, we'll have plenty of car parking spaces. And actually, it's also on a bus route. I can assure you, I've been involved with this prospect for some time, and always the priority has been a service to the community, something that's wanted. There isn't a crematorium in East Cambs at the moment, and I've seen people being badly treated and mishandled in insensitive ways at various funerals I've been to. We can make it better, and we can do it well, and I'm sure we will. So I believe this is something we should be and will be proud of. Councillor Trapp, in 2 or 3 years' time, will be looking along and looking at this new facility and saying, I voted for that, you know, a few years ago, and doesn't it look great? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, councillor Hunt. Any more comments on this part of the debate? Councillor Colbert.
Well, I was only going to observe that I do agree with Councillor Hunt that we are all going to die, but we're all going to die once. And all the people that we're personally involved with are only going to die once. But the whole of East Cambs District Council is full of people who want to use splash pools, football pitches, cricket pitches, play bingo, do 100 and other things week after week after week. So I would rather see our £9 million spent somewhere else. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Colbert. I'm seeing no more hands, in which case I suggest we bring this part of the public session to a close. As I said earlier, we will come back to public session for the vote on the recommendation. But if I can then ask for a vote that we, due to the consideration of the remaining items, because it is likely in view of the nature of the business to be transacted, that if members of the public were present during those items, there will be disclosure to them of exempt information. Are you happy that we move into private session? All those in favour? Thank you, members. That's carried. In which case, I'd just like to say to those members of the press and public watching online, we will now go into private session, but I don't know what time we will come out of private session, but we will do at some stage for the vote. Thank you. Okay, members, we are now back on live stream. Welcome back to those members of the press and public who have stayed with us while we've been in exempt session. We are now going to go to proposer and seconder on the recommendations. I've had a request for a recorded vote. So can I have a proposer for the recommendation? Councillor Bailey, and do I have a seconder? Councillor Goodall. Okay, as I say, this will be a recorded vote. When Tracy calls your name out, say for or against or abstain. Thank you. I should, sorry, just before we go to the vote, for the members of the press and public watching online, I will read out the recommendation so it's very clear. Members are requested to recommend to full council to approve the full business case as detailed in appendices 1 to 4, approve a SIL allocation up to 9.06 million for the capital build, authorise the Director of Finance to secure alternative funding where SIL is not available in consultation with the Chair of Finance and Assets Committee as detailed in section 5, secure provision of a partner to manage fishing rights on the site as set out in section 4.11 and approve the future operating model of the bereavement centre as set out in section 4.16. So for the benefit of those watching online, that is what we're voting on. Over to you, Tracy.
Thank you, Chairman. So when I call your name, can you say whether you're voting for, against or abstaining on the recommendations? Councillor Bailey.
For.
Councillor Colbert.
Against.
Councillor Dupre.
Against.
Councillor Goldsack.
For.
Councillor Goodall.
For.
Councillor Hunt. Councillor Inskip.
Against.
Councillor Miller.
For.
Councillor Sharp.
For.
Councillor Trapp.
Against.
Councillor Whelan.
Against.
Okay. So the recommendations are carried by 6 votes to 5.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. That does, for those of the members of the press and public watching online, that does finish the public session of this evening's meeting. Thank you for bearing with us while we went into private session, and hopefully you got some enjoyment out of watching the debates and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you for listening to us.